Hello, and welcome to Reiki Infused HeartMath Experience. I am doing this recording, and it will likely not be the full hour that I intended because we don't have live participants. So therefore, it won't take as long to get through everything. But for those of you who are watching, I'm so glad that you're able to pop on. And I hope that you do get something from this, not only your own healing experience and an opportunity to lean into and experience what it feels like to be in coherence, but also learning a little bit about heart math and how it can help both you as a therapist as well as your clients. And if you're not a therapist, um, it can help you as well. Heart math is accessible to anybody, and that's why I'm doing these free heart math experiences, because I just want to get it out there. It's such a simple technique. It's not easy, but it is simple. And the more we practice, the more we can be in coherence, which I'll talk about what that means in a moment. And the more that we can raise our individual vibrations, that raises the vibration of all of us. So I'm just so happy that you're here and you're willing and wanting to participate in this. So we're going to start with a grounding exercise. This is important because anytime we come into a space where we are going to do some exploration of our mind, body, and spirit, it's really important that we get grounded. So if it feels okay, you can close your eyes or gently rest them on the floor in front of you. And just start with finding your breath. We don't have to change anything quite yet. Just take a moment to find the in and the out of your breath. And maybe if it feels okay, you might want to slow that breath down just a little bit. Seeing if you can comfortably get to about 5 counts in and 5 counts out. Make sure on the inhale that you're filling your belly with air, and on the exhale, you're pulling that belly button into your spine. And when you're ready, you might want to bring your inner awareness to your feet. Just kind of noticing where they are right now. If they're on the ground, inside your shoes. If they're not on the ground, you might want to put them on the ground so that you can feel the floor beneath you. And perhaps imagining roots growing from the bottom of your feet, going down into the ground, through the foundation of whatever building you might be in, into the earth. Just imagining those roots anchoring in stability and presence. Continuing to breathe, just sending some Reiki energy to enhance that grounding and connection. And tuning in to your body, perhaps pulling energy from the earth through those roots up into the bottom of your feet, all the way up through your legs, through your pelvic area, in your belly, all the way up into your heart. Taking another breath there. When you're ready, and slowly open your eyes, just allowing the room to come to you. And maybe just taking a moment to look to your left and to your right, making sure you're turning your head and neck, not just your eyes, looking up and down, behind you in both directions. Here we're just orienting to our environment, maybe even looking around your space and seeing if you can find something that brings you joy or pleasure, something that feels good to you. Perhaps it's a sound or a smell or the feel of something if you've got a warm, fuzzy blanket nearby. Wonderful. So we're going to just take a moment before we jump into the actual experience to talk about HeartMath. So HeartMath Institute is actually been around for quite a while, and you can find a lot of information about it online. So just Google HeartMath Institute, and there's tons and tons of information. They have been doing research on the heart and the impact of the heart, not just the part of the heart that pumps our blood, but more so around the electromagnetic field of the heart and how that influences our overall health and well-being. And the research has really shown that, well, first of all, the electromagnetic frequency of our heart actually can be felt like 4 to 8 feet from our body, which is the strongest of any field, stronger than our brain, stronger than our belly. It's the strongest field from our physical body. And the belief is that in that field, it's a field of energy. We hold a lot of our emotions, the different vibrations of emotions. And so in HeartMath, they talk about emotions in an interesting way. They don't talk about like negative or positive emotions, bad or good, but they do talk about emotions that are either replenishing or rejuvenating and those that are depleting. And we'll learn more about this because it is important when we talk about nervous system regulation, which is part of this work. Heart math and nervous system regulation go together, kind of like hand and glove, where heart math techniques can be used as a way to regulate our nervous system. HeartMath calls it being in coherence. So being in coherence means that our heart and our mind and our body are all working together. And they use something called heart rate variability in order to measure that. So they're actually using this biofeedback where they're looking at our heart rate variability as a way to determine our overall wellness and health. We want our heart rate variability to be high. That means more variability in the time in between heart rate. Why is that? Because that means there's more flexibility in our system in order to match the needs of the environment. When we don't have that flexibility, typically what means that we're stuck in what's known as a defended state, which is one of the in polyvagal theory, it's known as one of the reactive states where we go under stress. And if we are stuck there, then we can't necessarily experience what's known as ventral vagal, which is connection and safety and being able to kind of relax with the people that we love and we want to be with. So this is a really kind of complicated system, but it is really simple when we look at how it works. So let's talk a minute about how coherence, which is what HeartMath helps us do, the techniques of HeartMath help us get into coherence, which remember is our body, mind, and and emotions all being in working together means our heart rate variability goes up. There's more flexibility in our system. And how that relates to the autonomic nervous system, or what we know as polyvagal theory. So in polyvagal theory, there are actually 3 nervous system states. However, that is evolving, and we do know now that there's like 3 main nervous system states, but then there's also a whole bunch of blended states in there. So polyvagal theory teaches us this as a ladder, and it teaches it to us as if it's hierarchical. And we are starting to learn that it may not be quite that rigid, and that it's more like a spiral where the goal is to move fluidly throughout these states. And we don't necessarily have to go through one state to get to the other, but we do need to have access to all of the states in order to be in order to find coherence. So we'll start with what's known as ventral vagal state, which is what we would consider to be a coherent or regulated state. So when we're in coherence, our heart, brain, our nervous system, everything's in sync, and we feel calm, connected, we feel present, we feel engaged, and our body is also physiologically efficient. Our heart rate variability is optimal. This is when we're feeling really good. We're feeling grounded, dialed in, connected, curious, excited, all of these things. Dorsal vagal, or well, I'll go to the next one, which is known as sympathetic. Our sympathetic state is what you all probably know as our fight flight state. So fight flight occurs when there's some kind of threat in the environment, and our nervous system takes over and helps us get into a position of either fighting, or if our nervous system believes we can't fight, then we flee. The next state is known as dorsal vagal. Dorsal vagal is collapse. So collapse is when our nervous system basically gives up and says, you know what, we can't fight, we can't flee, we're just going to play dead. And in that state, we often feel very overwhelmed. We feel really tired. It's kind of, I always talk about it like blanket over the head, can't get out of bed kind of feeling. So these are all necessary nervous system states. And if this was like a lesson on polyvagal theory, we would go into a lot more detail, but it's just important to know that all of these states are necessary for us to be functional human beings. The goal is to not get stuck in any particular state and to be able to move freely. And many of us can't, because for various reasons, we have remained stuck in what we call a defended or dysregulated state as a result of experiences, external and internal, we may have had in our lives, and not enough opportunities to be able to discharge those experiences in a way that we can move forward and come back to that ventral vagal safe and connected state again, that coherent state. It's hard to find when we are stuck in these other states. So heart coherence as a ventral vagal anchor. So HeartMath techniques help us activate that ventral vagal system by shifting our attention to the heart and the breath. Breathing in rhythm with the heart creates this feedback loop where the heart sends safety signals to the brain. The brain tells the nervous system it's okay to relax, and then the entire system moves into this state of resonance and flow. That's the ultimate goal. Simple, not easy. Just like anything, it takes practice. I've taught this to clients of mine who will come back and say, and I tried that thing you taught me in the middle of this argument and it didn't work. Typically doesn't work in the moment if you haven't been practicing. It's like training for a marathon. You're not going to just go out, you're not going to be able to go out and run 21 miles. You have to build up to it little bits at a time. And then you increase that baseline, and it makes it much easier to go out and run 10 miles than it did before you started, right? So I always tell people 2 or 3 minutes a day, practice these techniques, and your baseline will increase. It'll be a lot easier to find it when the time comes. So the other piece that I'm adding in today is Reiki. those of you who know me know that I use Reiki a lot, not only for myself and for my own regulation, but also in my psychotherapy practice as a way to help clients regulate and stay within their window of tolerance while we do difficult work. Reiki enhances this coherent state by acting as an external cue of safety. It's similar to how we co-regulate with one another. If I'm able to call on the Reiki energy and I can feel that, right? Then my system is in coherence, which then entrains with my client's system or my patient's system, which comes into coherence. Our goal here in doing this work with our clients is not only to teach them these skills as a way of learning how to bring their own system into coherence, but also help them to like touch this experience of coherence, because many of them never have, or if they have, they're not aware of it. And so our work initially is, let's do this together. Let's see what it feels like to be in coherence. Maybe we just touch it for a moment and then we lose it. That's okay. I like to talk about it similar to a balancing pose in yoga. You go into the pose. I mean, when I first started learning how to do tree, I can't tell you how many times I fell over, right? Um, so you go into a pose, you hold it for as long as you can, you fall over, you get back up, you do it again. It's as easy as that, but we have to practice. Okay. So what does this look like? I'm just checking out my notes here. We're going to start with, and the heart math techniques kind of build on each other and they continue to build. There's many of them. But what we're going to do today, we're actually going to do the first two, and I might bring in the third, depending on our time and how things go. And the first two are enough to get you started. And so for the rest of this session, I'd like to invite you, or there's an invitation for you to kind of just sit back in your chair, notice what it's like to be supported by the chair, by your space, by this experience. The rest of this time is for you. And then you can take whatever you want from this and you can bring it into your own practice and or into practice with your clients. So we are going to start with the first technique, which is called heart-focused breathing. We already did a little bit of this. You all probably already know this. You probably already do it. So just starting with finding yourself in space, getting comfortable, whatever you need to do. And taking a nice big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just closing your eyes if that feels okay. Not just gently rest them on the floor in front of you. And I'm just going to start sending some Reiki while we do this. And just beginning to breathe. Noticing where your breath begins and where it ends. And when you're ready, just bringing your inner awareness to your heart center. And beginning to breathe in and out of that space. So imagining your breath coming in through the heart and back out, as if your heart is breathing you. And when it feels right, you might want to just make that breath a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. Again, we want to be at about 5 counts in, 5 counts out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Just continuing on your own for a few more minutes. And while doing so, just kind of tuning in, noticing if you can feel the Reiki flow. Perhaps as you breathe in, imagine breathing in this loving energy and breathing out, releasing anything that you no longer need, all from your heart center. And when you're ready, just maybe wiggling your toes and your fingers and coming back into the space for a moment. And I forgot to mention to have maybe paper and pencil nearby or a journal. Take a moment to just check in with yourself. Just notice any shifts that may have occurred. Perhaps you feel an opening in your heart center. Perhaps your breath is just a little bit deeper or not. So I'll give you just a minute to continue your check-in, and if you want to make any notes. Okay. So before we move into the next technique, getting back to what I was saying earlier about HeartMath's use of emotion as a way of working with the heart. when we talk about emotion from a heart math perspective, what we're really talking about is vibration. Emotions are not good or bad, but they do feel differently and they do vibrate differently. So you've got higher vibration emotions that have more activation, they have more connection to self, they have more coherence, and you've got the lower activation, lower vibration emotions, which tend to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. They tend to be more depleting. They tend to keep us away from connection and isolated. And the way HeartMath talks about this is they use a grid. And if you can imagine, I wish I would have drawn a picture of it, but if you imagine four quadrants, and on the, let's say the one side of the quadrant, we have our um, depleting emotions. And on the other side of the quadrant, we have our rejuvenating or replenishing emotions. The depleting emotions are things such as sadness and shame and hopelessness and let's see, anger and frustration. The replenishing emotions or rejuvenating emotions are things like joy, appreciation, compassion, um, energetic. Is that an emotion? Probably not. I'm trying to think of a excited. So you get a sense of like the difference between the two. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty intuitive. Heart math breaks it up even further using if we're going to use the polyvagal theory in the different states. So if you are you can have a replenishing emotion that is, let's say, activating. So that would be like a, in polyvagal terms, a mixed state of ventral vagal and sympathetic. So that would be things like excited and joyful and those kinds of things. And then you can also have a replenishing emotion that is mixed with dorsal vagal, which is parasympathetic. And those are things like, let's see, I don't know why I'm blanking on the words, but like appreciation and compassion. So they have like less activating energy, but they are still ventral vagal. They're still higher vibration. Then on the depleting side, you have the same thing. So you've got the activating, depleting emotions like anger. And then you've got the parasympathetic depleting emotions like sadness. So you get a sense of kind of where everything falls. And really, if you wanted to, right, which again takes things a little bit deeper than this hours going, but you can start to map where you are at any given time on any given day. Where do you spend most of your time? You know, if you're looking at the grid, or think of it as a spiral. Do you spend most of your time in like this quadrant over here or in this quadrant over here? But for today, let's just check in with yourself. I mean, we just did heart focused breathing, so hopefully you're feeling pretty grounded. But perhaps there's something underneath all of this. So maybe just check in and see where do you find yourself on this grid? Are you currently kind of like low energy depleted? Are you high energy depleted, anxious, worried, angry? Or are you low energy replenishing, such as grateful, compassionate, or maybe high energy replenishing, which would be excited, curious. So just taking a moment to check in. All right. And so when you're ready, and I'm going to send the Reiki again, have you just close your eyes That feels okay. Again, you can also rest them gently on the floor in front of you, whatever feels good for you. Finding your breath again. And we're just going to go right back to that heart-focused breathing. So beginning to breathe in and out of your heart again. And perhaps just imagining breathing in this high vibration energy of Reiki in whatever way feels right for you. Be a loving presence. On your out breath, just releasing whatever no longer serves you. You may even want to put one hand on your heart center as a way of really focusing in there. And so now there's an invitation to recall and hold a positive, regenerative emotion. So, as we talked about, this could be joy, it could be compassion, it could be appreciation, it could be love. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. So, you could bring in a memory, you could bring in a person, you could bring in a place, or you could bring in a sensory experience like feeling the sun on your face, or the ocean lapping at your feet, or your toes in the warm sand. And play around with it a little bit. I know it took me some time to figure out the best way for me to activate that vibration. Continuing to breathe in and out of that heart center, activating that high vibration, that emotion. Noticing as the Reiki flows through you. Again, if you fall out of it, if your mind starts wandering, it's totally normal and okay. Just gently come back. When you touch this place of coherence, you'll know it. It's a feeling of coming home to yourself. It may only last for a moment, that's okay. This is practice. Okay, so slowly starting to come back, maybe wiggling your toes and your fingers. Just going to do a little grounding. You may want to push your feet into the floor. So maybe revisit those roots again. Take a moment. Ooh, holy moly, to look around your space. There is some tightness in my traps for sure. Ooh, yeah, you might want to just stretch those out. Maybe move your body a little bit. Just notice where there may be some tightness or tension or lessening of tightness and tension. Yeah. So again, just taking a moment to check in, maybe even coming back to that grid and we talked about before going in and noticing where you fall now. Where are you? Which quadrant are you in? Has it shifted? Did it change? Do you notice any difference? Just taking a moment maybe to jot that down or just maybe checking in and contemplating. So I hope that this was healing and helpful. Just remember that coherence is the physiological experience of safety and flow. And we can do it. We can bring ourselves into that state. We don't need anybody else. We don't need anything else. The only thing we need is our own breath and a couple of minutes. So using HeartMath breathing, both that heart focus breathing and then that second technique we did where we brought in the rejuvenating, regenerative, whatever we want to call it, feeling is called quick coherence. So that is also a HeartMath technique. You could also take that quick coherence and radiate it out. So once you build that vibration inside of you, you can radiate it out to others as well. And for those of you who are attuned to Reiki, of course, we can always use Reiki as a co-regulating presence to help us with our own nervous system regulation and coherence, as well as with the people we work with. And it's always helpful to notice the difference, right? So it's one thing to do these techniques and like get up and go, but pausing to notice any shifts because it's really important to know what it feels like to be in coherence so that you know when you've landed there. We can't get to where we're going if we don't know where we're going. And one thing that I have found is the more that I practice this, the easier it is to access and the longer I can stay there. And so that's been super helpful during those times when outside stressors feel too much. I feel overwhelmed. Something's hitting me really hard. It's much easier for me to access this state of coherence in the face of those things because I am practicing it on a daily basis. So again, I hope this was helpful. please reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to learn more. Really would like to do more of these. And I know we're all super busy. Trust me, I can't tell you how many things I sign up for and don't go, especially if I know it's going to be recorded. So I totally get it and understand. I want to make this as accessible as possible. So I'm also really open to ideas on how to do that, whether it's like quick Facebook Lives or more, scheduled sessions like these. Um, if you're interested, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. You can get to me at journeykindredsouls@gmail.com. So that's journeykindredsouls@gmail.com. And just shoot me an email and let me know what you think. And if you want more of these, what would be best for you in terms of accessibility. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.